Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. So today we are going to discuss narration. I'm sure all of you have at one point talked about and discussed narration in your classrooms, and the terms and the rules you would already be familiar with. We'll just try to revise certain rules and we try to see the importance and how do we actually contextualize and use narration in practice. So for that we would be using Wren Martin book as well as Oxford Practice Grammar. So let's see. Okay, so in narration, when we talk about, we have direct speech and then we have reported speech. So basically, the question is, why do we need narration and what is the purpose of narration and what does it mean? If you have the idea, please comment. Okay, that would be great. Otherwise, in general, we use narration to narrate. Okay, by narrate we mean tell something. So when we are telling that the ideas of some other person, okay, are we trying to talk about the point of view that the other person has shared, or we are trying to say the exact words that someone else mentioned? In that case we would say that we are narrating it. So we oftentimes have this opportunity to tell the other person the ideas or some information that was given to us by someone else. Okay, so it is important to mention the name of the person, and it is important to acknowledge that this is their idea and their words, not mine. Okay, sometimes it's obvious, sometimes we have so many pronouns and the context is very clear. But other times when we're talking in terms of ideas, it is very important to share the exact words. And it is often so much helpful when we are writing research and we avoid plagiarism. And in that case, we have to quote or we have to cite what we're talking about is someone else's idea. Other than acknowledging their efforts, it is also important to substantiate your argument by telling the readers that this is something which is acknowledged by these famous persons, these researchers, these scholars. So in that case, we also have to narrate or show their quotes. So we say it is a direct speech when we use them in the quotation marks and we say that this is their exact words. Okay, so we have some examples here. So let's see this conversation. It's very basic conversation, and let's see what is the difference between reported speech and direct speech. Trevor said, "I'm tired." Wasn't it Greta Garbo who said, it's basically, "I want to be alone"? But I don't love you, Henry, replied Claire. Okay, so here this is Trevor is saying this, and then we have a response by Claire, and she's talking about Greta who said something. Okay, so we can show that words are direct speech by putting them in quotation marks. So one way could be when we are using quotation marks like done here and here, like this. So by using quotation marks in writing, that would be obvious that these are the words, exact words that were said by someone else. Sometimes the words are put after the speaker's name, okay, in the script of a play or film. For example, in a picture, we can put the words in a speech bubble. So here we have a speech bubble, and here we're saying that she is the person who is saying these words. Okay, so one we could be using them in quotation marks, or we could show in a bubble that these are she's saying these words and so on. And that would be the direct speech. Then we have reported speech. In reported speech, we give the meaning of what was said rather than the exact words. So sometimes to contextualize the speech or to contextualize the idea, we have to make certain tweaks or certain amends in what we are saying about the ideas that was shared. Okay, for example, someone said, like, for example, on the date 1st January, they said, "Today is the best day of my life." Okay, when I'm telling you that thing today, like, let's say it is 26th or 27th. So when I'm saying these words on 27th or 26th January, I wouldn't say that she said today is the best day of my life, because the best day of her life was 1st January. Okay, so we have to contextualize the word, and then when I'll tell you that she said that that day or 1st January was the best day of her life. Okay, That's how we have to contextualize. Because if I say the same words without quotation marks, okay, if I say on 1st January, she said, okay, in inverted commas, today is the best day of my life. That would be understandable and that would retain the context. But if I have to tell you today, and I don't have to mention the date, I would say that that was the best day of her life when something happened, or like I can contextualize it accordingly. So that's how we make certain amends in what we are saying. So that is basically where the rules of narration comes in action, and that's how we need these rules of narration, that how can we make those amends. So we need to make amends in pronouns. Here we could see, okay, also we can make amends in adverbs of place in action and these things like these. Okay, and also we have to talk about tense, because she said at this that's in the same example that today is, but when I'm saying that was, so that's how I have to amend the tense. Okay, and then also uh, best day of her life, okay, and not the best day of my life, because that day had nothing to do with me, but it was about her. So that's how we could see that in this one sentence we had to make three changes. We changed the tense, we changed the pronoun, as well as the adverb of time. So this is how basically certain rules of reported speech come in action, and that's why we have to be very careful in narration to contextualize and to understand we don't make any mistakes. Because when we are making one such error and we are not using the appropriate amends, we would change the entire meaning of the sentence. So for example, in the previous example, if I say she said that it is the best day of my life. Okay, when there are no commas, that my would refer to me because I'm saying it right now. So you would think that 1st January was the best day of my life. So that's, for example, that's how this small pronoun error could make a difference in the entire meaning. So if you have to be clear, you have to make your message clear. So you have to be careful of all these small changes. So here the same conversation is put in practice and context. To exemplify, here we would say that in reported speech we often change the actual words. For example, I'm tired. Okay, previously Trevor said here, I'm tired. Now when I'm saying it, I would say he said he's tired. Okay, because I was referring to him. So that's what we see here, how we change the pronoun. Okay. Similarly, we have another example. Sometimes the verb tense changes, like she want. Okay, here we would say she wanted because she said it in the past, and that is when she wanted it. Maybe she doesn't want it now. Maybe she got it already. So the question was, or the statement makes only sense when we're talking about she said it in the past, so she wanted it then. Okay, so we have to make verb changes, and then we have to change the pronoun like here. So there would be certain rules that we would discuss, but mainly it is dependent on the context that who we are speaking about. So whenever you have to make the changes, you have to keep in mind, or you have to create a real life situation in which you would think in mind who are you talking about. Okay, only then you would be able to clearly make these changes. In reporting, we use verbs such as announce, answer, explain, mention, promise, reply, say, suggest, tell, warn. Okay, so again, this would not be like any rule specific, rule bound that you have to use one word. That would again vary according to the what sentence is coming forward. If there is any announcement, if there is in the context of announcement, okay, or there is certain words that was said and you think it was an announcement, then you would say that she announced, okay, or she answered if it was a question, or if she is elaborating something, you would say she explains. Similarly for a warning and so on. So whenever she's making a prayer or she's promising something, so you can choose the reporting word such as or any of these. So these are the common reporting verbs, and these could again vary. For example, she exclaimed, she prayed, and so on. The most common words, however, we use are say and tell. Okay, so you would have seen in books that we would use say or tell for generalized rule, because that would be fit in every situation, every context. But you can go for either of these, and that could again be contextualized. So the most important thing in narration, I would say, is context. You have to keep in mind what's the current situation at that point. We can also report thoughts, okay, like not reporting verbs exactly, but we can also about thoughts. We think the meal was expensive. So this is not something we said, but we thought it at the time. Okay. Nick knew, so she didn't say it, but she knew it, that Rita wanted to be with someone else. We can report statements. We often use that, but we can often sometimes leave it out. So we would see that when oftentimes you are told that whenever you're omitting quotation marks, at that point you have to put that in that place. Okay, so we often use that. So we often use this word that, but we can omit it sometimes as well, as it is shown in brackets. So that doesn't mean that it is not as important. You would just say, like it would again be in informal speech, you would say you promised you wouldn't be late. Okay, we wouldn't say you promised that you would be late. You wouldn't be late. So we can say that, but we can also omit it at our convenience. And in informal speech, oftentimes it is omitted. So next point is when to know we have to use say or we have to use tell. So we use tell if we want to mention the hearer. Okay, so when we say that she told me, okay, that she's going to leave for America. Okay, but when I say that she said she's going to leave for America, so when I have to specifically mention who was the listener or who was the hearer or who was it reported to, in that context, I would always use tell. Okay, for example, Sarah told her boss, Sarah's boss told her, or Sarah told her boss. So when we have a someone hearer at that context, we would use tell. But when we do not have a hearer, we would say Sarah's boss said, okay, not specifically to her, but the boss just said. Okay, then here Daniel tells me he's ready, and so on. We use tell without an indirect object, her, me, only in the expressions tell a story, tell the truth, and tell a lie. So when we do not have a hearer or recipient or an indirect object, okay, so we can use tell only when we are talking about expressions like tell a lie, tell a story, tell a truth. These are like cliche words of the structures, expressions that are used. So only in that case we can use tell. Otherwise, in normal circumstances, when we do not have a hearer, we would use say. I hope the difference is clear that when you have to use tell and when you have to use say. Here we have some basic exercises. These are again, as we did in passive voice and active voice, these would be voluntarily exercises. If you want to do, you can take a screenshot. I've also shared this book with you, so you can complete these exercises. And of course, you can type it in comments or email me. Otherwise, there will be homework that will be compulsory for all of you that you have to put in comments. Okay, that would be at the end. Similarly, as we did with active voice and passive voice. Now here in reported speeches, we talked about how we have to make changes in person, place, or time. So these are some changes, how we would make these. So here's a conversation. It's Friday afternoon and David is at Tom's flat. Tom has decided to have a party for all his friends. A few minutes later, so here we have a conversation, if you could read, between probably David and Tom. Okay, a few minutes later, Nick has arrived at the flat. Now, David is reporting that Tom said, so instead of Tom's words, I'm having, David says he's having. Okay, so here we could see that these are Tom's words. I'm having a party here tomorrow evening. So he's talking about Tom and he's David. So now, when few minutes later, Nick arrives. Okay, so here, uh, David is talking about what Tom had already shared, and then he's saying Tom is having a party. He wouldn't say I'm having a party the way Tom initially said, because David is not having a party. It is Tom who is having a party. So he would say, Tom says he is having a party here tomorrow morning. If he had said Tom says, I'm having a party here, so it would have been ambiguous because Tom said, so I was referring to either Tom or David. So it would have been ambiguous and unclear where the party exactly is. So when you don't have to invite anybody, you can use this technique. But when you really have to invite someone, you have to be clear with pronouns. So instead of I'm having, you would say he's having. Okay, so now we have a time situation where we have the next day, David is talking to Harriet. Now, David is in a different place from where Tom first told him about the party. Now, the place is also changed, and the day is the other day, not the same day when he said it. Because previously we would see that Tom said, I am having a party tomorrow evening. So, for example, this is first of any month, and then he's saying I'm having a party. That means the party is on second day of month, or the like second of, let's say, January. Okay, so here in then they're talking about on the same day. So again, he would say the tomorrow evening. That means again he's referring to 2nd January. So here we would say it's the next day already. So that means that today is the day of the party. So now David is talking to Harriet. Now David is in a different place from where the first time they told at the party. So instead of here, he would say it has played. So where they were there. So they were talking about the parties here. Okay, so you have to come. So having a party here. So the party is at the same place where they already were. So now they are at a different place and the day is already different. So he would say, I saw Tom yesterday. He said, he said he is having a party. So he's not saying I. So first change it his plate instead of here. Now the last change would be instead of tomorrow's evening, he would say this evening because it's the next day. So here you would observe the sentence is like there are three changes already: pronoun and per place and time. Okay, so this is how you have to contextualize. Now I cannot tell you always have to use this evening or tomorrow evening. So that would vary if you're using it on the same day or you are using it the next day or few days later. So this is how you change person, place, and time accordingly. So usually these are the changes in pronouns of persons and in place here, there at the plate is for this example, or depending on this sentence, depending on the context, you would talk about that particular place. And then time would again, these would be some common examples that you'll have to change. Now just convert it into then or at that time. Today is converted to that day, because if someone says today, I would say that it was said that day, or we can mention that particular day. So similarly, these changes could be made, but once again, it would depend on the context. So you have to be very careful. Next, we have these exercises for the change of time, place, and person. If you want to do these exercises, you can try to attempt one or two sentences and type them in the comments. You can take a screenshot, or you already have a book, you can open these exercises. It was 133 exercise. Now we have 134 exercise. Now in reported speech, we are talking about the tense change. So now we are clear that how according to the context we have to change person, place, and time. Now we have to make certain tense changes. So this is how we would do it. Now it would depend on the reporting speech and reported speech. Okay, so if the reporting speech is in the present, the reported speech, the speech that was said, that would remain same. But when we have that in past, so the changes would be made accordingly. When do we change the tense? Okay, so after the past tense verb like said, so if we have says, so that means he said it right now in the same context, same time. So there we do not make any changes, and it would remain the same present tense, let's say, or whatever tense we're talking about. But when we have said or the past tense here, so then we change is to was and every present verb to past according to this said, because it was said previously. I hope it is making sense, because जब कोई बात पास्ट में की जाती होती है तो वो तब हम अगर पास्ट में जो चीज़ प्रेजेंट होती है, फॉर एग्जांपल कल मैंने कहा था अभी मैं बहुत खुश हूँ, तो मैं जब बाद में बताऊंगी तो कल मैं बहुत खुश थी, ठीक है, बिकॉज द टाइम हैज चेंज्ड एंड इट हैज बिकम पास्ट नाउ. सो व्हेन आई वुड से दैट आई सेड इट yesterday, okay, or I said yesterday I was happy, okay, जबकि कल मेरे एग्जैक्ट वर्ड्स थे I am happy. So this is how we have to make these changes in tense. If the statement is still up to date when we report it, okay, then we have a choice. Now, for example, if I'm still happy today or anything which is still valid, then it's up to us whether or which one we use. That is like more contextualized and more related. अगर आपको लगता है कि आप जिंदगी में खुश हूँ तो वहाँ पे मैं ये भी यूज कर सकती हूँ कि I am happy. So it would be varied accordingly. But when we if something is not valid, so वहाँ पे we have to make it in the past. Okay, if it's no longer up to date, then we have to make these changes. Okay, for example, the trip is over, so it is no longer true. So this is how it works. Then we usually change the tense of the verb if we think the statement is untrue or maybe untrue. So when we think something is not true, okay, or we are like there is a possibility of being it untrue, in that case we have to change the tense. You said you liked chocolate, but you aren't eating any. So in here case, if you're not eating it, that means you might not like chocolate. So here you would said liked, because like is certain word that would remain true in general sense. Because if I like something yesterday, I would like it today. So like here we have an example. Okay, if you like someone or if you like something, that is more probable that you like it always. So that would be valid. But here when we think it's not true, only in that we would not say like for, but we would say liked. The Prime Minister claimed that the government had made the right decision. But if you do not agree with that, then you would say had. Okay, the words would have been the Prime Minister claimed that the government has made the right decision. But if you think that is not true, you could use had. Similarly, here are some changes which you can make. Here are some examples. This is the direct speech, the exact words, and this is how you report it. Is is changed to was, aren't is changed to weren't, I have is changed to he had, it's been raining would be changed to it has been raining, would be changed to it had been raining, we have got plenty of time would be converted to they had get plenty of time, we like would be converted into they liked. So this is how basically you make these tense changes. I'll share the picture with you where there are rules are specified clear, or we can look for the list here. This is Renan Martin, and this is like more explicitly rule based. And Oxford practice is, it is more practice based, and the context is clear there. So here are certain rules. How pronoun is changed. I hope we have. Yes. So here are basically the tense changes. Here we would see a simple present becomes simple past. A present continuous becomes past continuous. A present perfect becomes past perfect. So you can take a screenshot of these examples. See here. So this is for present. Present continuous becomes past continuous. Present perfect becomes past perfect. Then we have certain more changes that we can observe here. Okay, so these are the rules that would be clear. You can take a screenshot of these things. So here is another screenshot that you can take. These would be really helpful for you. In a general context, we can use these words. And then we have a questions, but let me see, we will reach there later. Okay, so modal verbs could also be changed like this, like can is changed to could. So can, may, and will would change to could, might, and would respectively. So can would be could, may would be might, will would be would. Okay, and these would stay same because they all kind of give a sense of past. So, but they would but must we can change it to have to. Okay, I must do this, I have to do this, and so on. Then we have some more exercises if you are willing to do. Now we are talking about questions. Now questions can be a little tricky in narration, so we have to practice. So we can report questions with verbs like ask, wonder, want to know. Okay, when someone says, I want to ask you something, or I wonder this, so that's kind of a question, or I want to know. Okay, first of all, we are given WH questions. Okay, like when, what, which, how, and where. So when we're talking about when, we would say the guy asked Melissa when she started acting. Okay, so here we have the here. When did you start acting? So who is the question being asked to? So in that case, we would say the guy asked Melissa when she started acting. Okay, what's the time? I just asked what the time is. Which day is the post office? Someone wants to know which day the post office is. Which way the post office is. So this is how you can use these words like asked, wonders, or wants to know. How can we find out? I'm wondering how can we find out? But still we would have WH words retained. Okay, so when we're talking about WH questions, there could be different types of questions as we all know. One way could be using WH questions, then we can have yes or no questions, or we have questions which when we move the verb of the sentence in the beginning. For example, are you all right? So that's another question. We don't have WH word there. That's a tense question. Okay, so when we so there will be different rules for different types of questions. For WH questions, this is how we make these sentences. Then we have yes or no questions like has the taxi arrived yet with the tense. The assertive one would be the taxi has arrived yet, but the question is has the taxi arrived yet. So we can have this kind of a structure where we would use if, or whether. So someone was wondering if the taxi has arrived yet. Okay, or we could use someone was wondering whether the taxi has arrived yet. So we can use either if or we can use whether. The visitors want to know if they can take photos. Okay, so can we take photos is again by the use of modal verbs. So they want to know whether they can take photos. Daniel asked if there was a cafe nearby. So these are yes or no questions by using helping verb in the beginning. There we would use if or whether. So if or whether it's like giving you a choice, yes or no. Okay, but when we WH questions, where we would ask when, what, which, how. So that is how we would retain the same word as well. So we also have to be careful of the word order. In a reported speech, the subject comes before the verb as in a statement because that is not in a question that no anymore. So rather now it's in a statement. So we have to keep this order according to the statement. Okay. And here are certain more rules. Again, the tense rule would remain same in the questions as well. Now we have some more exercises. Here you can take the screenshot. Then we have reported questions. We have reported requests and offers, which we can make accordingly, like as we did with the sentences. So the rules would be same, like tell or ask. That's again a request. So these would be similar to the questions that we're talking about. Then we have following exercises. You can take the screenshot if you want to. So finally, we have this text, which is your homework. Okay, you can take this screenshot and you have to complete these sentences. Please try to mention this number when you're completing the exercise. Write test 2 3A and convert these sentences okay, into the correct version. Some of these are correct, and some of have a word which should not be there. So there are some mistakes in it. Some of them is correct. So if it is incorrect, cross the unnecessary word out the sentence and write it in the space. So that's how you have to change these sentences and make them correct. Write test 23A and then solve this. Okay, please take a screenshot. And then we have test 23B. So here you have to decide which word is correct, and that would be most appropriate when we are making the changes in the reported speech. Okay, choose the right option, and maybe you can write the sentence with that particular word. Like the correct option here is to you, so it's already done. So you can write that or just choose that right word and write in the comments. So you write test 23B and solve this exercise. You can take a screenshot of these 8 sentences. Then we have test 23C. Okay, read the news report and write the missing words. So you have to write the missing words the way it should be reported. Use one word only in one space. So in each space, you have to write one word. Sometimes there's more than one possible answer, so different answers could be right. So choose whatever you think is would be called right according to the context. Okay, it's up till here, from and then here. Then we have test 23D. Complete the sentence by reporting what was said to you yesterday. So the context is given. You are said something yesterday, so that's how you have to change these sentences and use said and change the tense in the reported speech. So you have to change the tense in this exercise. Okay, so these are 8 sentences you have to change. If you don't, if you feel like it's too much work, in that case, just at least try to do at least 5 of 8 these, because in all the exercises we have 8 questions. Okay, here this one, please try to complete 10 of these, because if you choose any 8, so that would be confusing. Okay, for remaining exercises, just choose any 5 at least. Okay, if, it would be great if you do 8, but at least do 5. Then here, report the sentences. They were all spoken last week. So the context here is last week. Use the verbs in bracket. Okay, so the verbs are already given. Tell, admit, apologize, invite, ask. So you have to use these ones. The context is last week, and you have to report these sentences. This is the right speech that he said, stop shouting. So you can convert it and report it. Okay, so that's it for this test. This is your homework. And if you still have any confusions or queries, you can ask in the comments and I will try to respond. And please try to do these exercises by this week. And don't forget to mention your roll number so I should know who's submitting their homework and who's responding. Thank you so much for watching this video. Good luck. Allah Hafiz. Take care.